Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We are in Ezekiel chapter 8. And again, what a marvelous book this is. The revelation that Ezekiel receives is astounding. And remember, he is really a priest that was exiled to Babylon. He was probably about 25 years old. So he had not entered the priesthood yet, and more than likely didn't. He probably was certainly was a Levi um, in Babylon. They did not have synagogues yet. That would not come to much later. They gathered. So, in other words, priest duties would have been limited for him. But the revelation that God has given him. Now, at the same time, what comes along with that deep revelations that he received, he also has some challenging tasks that God takes him through. So let's get to it. Ezekiel chapter 8. He says, now in the 6th year, in the 6th month. Now we hear these dates. And let me kind of remind you, because sometimes we hear dates that are not necessarily in chronological order. Um, so the prophecies that we see here are a collection, okay? And that's why sometimes you will see a different date, the 38th year, the 15th year, okay? So it says, in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month, I was sitting in my house, and the elders of Judah were sitting in front of me. And there, the hand of the Lord came down on me. I looked, and there was a form, I'm sorry. I looked, and there was a form that had the appearance of a man. From what seemed to be his waist down was fire, and from his waist up something that looked bright, like a gleam of amber. He stretched out what appeared to be a hand and took me by the hair of my head. Then the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and heaven and carried me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, and to the entrance of the inner gate that faces north, where the offensive statue, that provoke jealousy, was located. And I saw the glory of God of Israel there, like the visions I had seen in the plain. This is offensive statue. What God is getting ready to show him are a lot of the pagan, promiscuous, and vile practices that he's going to expose about Israel, which is why they're in the situation that they're in. So again, what's going on is just amazing. Here, this would seem to be an angel takes him by the hair and then picks him up, and then he's in the vision. He's transported to Jerusalem. And I'm going to take this to be more than a vision, that is also be real time. That in other words, God is showing him this. And it could be a vision. Again, I wouldn't, it's nothing to debate over, but verse 5, the Lord said to me, son of man, look towards the north. I looked to the north, and there was this offensive statue north of the altar gate at the entrance. Now, when it says offensive, this is being kind of mild, probably more obscene. I think some translations do have it as obscene. And I'm going to say, don't let your mind go there, because it is extremely offensive, extremely obscene. If you remember I forget, one of the queen mothers doing the king, I don't know if it was Ahab, but she had an offensive statue. and most people believe that that was some kind of male genital. Okay, so just kind of give you the idea here. Like I say, without getting into a lot of vivid detail that we don't need here. Because actually, if God was to show this and then give the details of this, it would be pornographic. It would be like one of the erotic novels that you see, and if you ever read them, I mean, I was um, promoting my book one time, and I was sitting next to a lady who was an erotic uh, writer. She was promoting her book. And some of that stuff, like I say, it's just pornographic. That's just, there's no other way to describe it. So there's only so far. You can't go too far with this, without this being, again, pornographic. All right. Verse 6 says, He said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing here? More detestable things than the house of Israel is committing, so that I must depart from my sanctuary. And then he says, you will see even more detestable things. Then he brought me to the entrance of the court, and when I looked there was a hole in the wall. He said to me, Son of man, dig through the wall. So I dug through the wall, and there was a doorway. He said to me, go in and see the terrible and detestable things they are committing. I went in and looked, and there was engraved all around the walls, with every form of detestable thing, crawling creatures and beasts, as well as all the idols of the house of Israel. 70 elders from the house of Israel were standing before them, with Jazaniah, son of Shaphan, standing among them. Each had a fire pan in his hand, and a fragrant cloud of incense was rising up. Then he said to me, Son of man, do you see what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the darkness, each at his shrine of his darkness? For they are saying, the Lord does not see. The Lord has abandoned the land. Again, he said this to me, you will see even more detestable things which they are committing. Now, kind of interesting here, one of the greatest takeaway is the Lord sees. So don't think that you're ever doing something in secret. Just ask God for mercy. Come before him in mercy. Be noticed. He sees. And he's showing Jeremiah. These guys don't know that Jeremiah is being shown these things. Okay. So verse 14 said, He brought me to the entrance of the north gate of the Lord's house, and I saw a woman sitting, weeping there for Tammuz. Now Tammuz, very interesting. And you see his name, Tammuz, who was a pagan god. And some people today have tried to make the parallel of Tammuz, okay, to Christianity. Now they don't care about that. They're just looking for ways. They're just looking for ways to discredit. And so, but it's kind of interesting. You see this um, mention of it in the Bible. So let me kind of give you a brief uh, um, um, history here. It says Tammuz in Mesopotamia religion, the god of fertility, embodying the powers of new life and nature. Okay, new life in nature in the spring. Um, Now I'm not going to go. The reason why I wanted to read that, and I wanted to point out that notice it said in the spring, and so therefore a lot of um, similarities to Easter. Now, let me just say this: when it comes to how people try to, whether it's Christmas, whether it's Easter, you have people who will say that we should not worship. I mean, we should not celebrate, like say Easter or or Christmas because of the pagan similarities, or like taking some of the pagan practices. So here's what I want to say. One, Christians are not worshiping Christmas. Now, I don't care whether you do or don't for us Christmas, right? Um, one of the the problem is that in either cases they have become so commercialized that why do we celebrate them? In other words, if all you're doing is buying gifts, and Christmas is one of the most profitable seasons, and then Easter, of course, you spend money on a bunch of chocolate, right? And Easter eggs and all that, and Easter bunny. And in both cases, now they have been commandeered by the world, and so now the reason why initially Christians were celebrating them is no longer a factor. So Christmas being the birth of Christ, and then Easter being um, um, the resurrection, celebrating the resurrection. I can't think of anybody who does that. And I'm going to clarify that churches do. Okay, so churches do. Churches will have their Easter services and their Christmas services. And again, the point is, what I'm going to say is, I don't think it matters. Okay, to me, that the argument that Chris, you read a verse in Jeremiah where it talks about chopping down a tree and then worshiping it. Well, the problem with that is Christians are not doing that. So in either case, we're not celebrating the god of Tammuz, okay, or whatever other pagan ritual the word came from, or even the season in which. Now, for example, Christmas, Jesus was not born on December 25th. Period. It wasn't. He was probably born sometime in the spring or the summer, maybe fall, but it wasn't winter. So how Christians got attached to that? That's why I said they're man-made practices, plain and simple. Even the celebrations, if you want to say the celebration, whether you celebrate Christmas or Easter or not, it has nothing to do with God. Has nothing to do with Christianity. It's a tradition. It's a practice. Now, what I'm saying is that Christians are not worshiping what people are accusing them of, or say of a pagan ritual. There were pagan rituals that corresponds to Easter and Christmas, but that's not what name one person who says that they're bowing down to the Christmas tree and worshiping whatever the god is, or at Easter time they're bowing down and worshiping Tammuz. That it doesn't happen. I think Christians have other issues to me that come out of making those days something more than what they should be. In other words, they have nothing to do with God. So, you know. But anyway, so here he brought him in, and you see these women weeping. Now, just again to keep this in mind, while this is going on, they're being conquered. They're being destroyed. Nebuchadnezzar is outside the gates, closing in. Verse 16 says, So he brought me to the inner court of the house of the Lord's house, and there was about 25 men at the entrance of the Lord's temple, between the portico and the altars, with their backs to the Lord's temple and their faces turned to the east. They were bowing to the east in worship of the sun. And he said to me, Do you see this, son of man? Is it not enough for the house of Judah to commit the detestable things they are practicing here? That they must also fill the land with violence and repeatedly provoke me to anger, even putting the branch to their nose. Therefore I will respond with wrath. I will not show pity or spare them. though they cry out in my ears with a loud voice, I will not listen to him. So this kind of, again, shows us God sees. So don't think that God doesn't see. But again, notice that they were bowing and worshiping. Okay. All right. Chapter 9, he says, Then he called to me directly with a loud voice, Come near, executioners of the city, each of you with a destructive weapon in his hand. And I saw 6 men coming from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with a war club in his hand. And there was another man among them, clothed in linen, with writing equipment at his side. They came and stood beside the bronze altar. Then the glory of the God of Israel rose from above the cherub where it had been to the threshold of the temple. He called to the man clothed in linen, with the writing equipment at his side. He says, Pass through the city of Jerusalem. The Lord said to him, Put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and groan over all the detestable practice committed in it. He spoke as I listened to the others. Pass through the city after him and start killing. Do not show pity or spare them. Excuse me. Slaughter the old men and young men and women, as well as the older women and little children. But they did not come near anyone who has the mark. Now begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the elders who were in front of the temple. Then he said to them, Defile the temple and fill the courts with the slain. Go. So they went out, killing the people in the city. While they were killing, I was left alone, and I fell down and cried out, O Lord God, are you going to destroy the entire remnant of Israel when you pour out your wrath on Jerusalem? He answered me, The iniquity of the house of Judah is extremely great. The land is full of bloodshed, and the city is full of perversity. For they say, The Lord has abandoned the land, he does not see. But as for me, I will show no pity or spare them. I will bring their actions down on their heads. Then the man clothed in linen, with the writing equipment at his side, reported back, I have done as you have commanded. Now, I want to go back because obviously this, how God commands them to execute these people that are having this just great perverse, right, behavior, the pagan worship. But I want you to notice something here. What is 6? Let me go back. Where did it go right here? Oh, here we go. It's verse number 4. He says, Pass throughout the city of Jerusalem, the Lord said to him, and put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and groan over all the detestable practice committed in it. Now, this kind of answers the question here. Because oftentimes, as you see, the focus is on how perverse the people have become. Then we can say like this, it's most of the people who are perverse. Notice this here, which is something very interesting because we also see this in Revelations chapters 7 and 14, where God puts a mark on the heads of the 144,000 male Jewish Israelites, right? He puts a mark on their heads. And then the language was even the same in Revelations where God is getting ready to judge, and he says, don't pour out your judgment until the 144,000 have been marked or sealed. Now you will also note that, notice he says he put a mark on their head so that they would be distinguished from the pagans, so that they would be distinguished when the judgment came. Now that's kind of amazing right here, again, amazing. And also, let me say this, I say, this is why I say you have to understand Old Testament prophecy to better understand Revelations. Because notice the similarities there. Put the mark on their head, and then God begins to execute those vile people with their vile pagan worship. But he says, put a mark on their heads right there. So in other words, the mark of the beast is not the only one or unique. God had been doing this way before. Think about this. Thousands of years before that event's going to happen, in terms of when the beast shows up. Okay, so this practice was done during the fall of Jerusalem, and he says, put a mark on their heads. Mark their heads. Now, what is the mark? We don't know. The same, it could be as simple as just putting a mark on there, right? That's, sometimes people they kind of overthink in terms of what the mark is or what a mark is. And again, it could just simply be God put a mark on. All right, guys. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And I'll see you in the next study.